Next, let's talk about the service catalog structure. So the first thing is it provides self-service. So it allows users or administrators to come into the service catalog and request items or blueprints themselves. And this way, if the automated workflows are in place, they can actually get those services or applications provisioned after they click that request without ever having to go through an administrator. Now, to go along with that, we have approval workflows as well. So when someone requests an item, you may have it by default just get approved and it goes through and does its provisioning. You also may have it so an approval has to happen. Maybe an approval always has to happen. Or maybe if someone requests something with performance attributes like over 4 vCPUs or over 12 gigs of RAM or more than a terabyte of storage, that can also trigger an approval workflow. So it's kind of like having gates. So if something's under that gate, so in the first level, automatically goes through. If they're over that gate, then maybe it gets sent to their manager for approval. And if they're really off base or they're really over what you think should be, the kind of the normal profile, maybe an administrator has to approve it. So VCAC supports in-depth approval workflows that you can integrate into your whole service catalog. The service catalog is also very extensible. So not only can you provision things like virtual machines or infrastructure items, but you can do services as well. For instance, you can do maybe Active Directory user creation, Exchange mailbox mapping, permissions. You can do all sorts of things. Basically, by leveraging vCenter Orchestrator and APIs and workflows, you can really add pretty much any kind of blueprint item to the self-service catalog. And in that way, we're creating a service catalog that's very extensible and supports many different sources for actions and provisioning. And finally, the service catalog allows separation of services. And you can think of this in two ways. So first, within an organization, you can actually take the service catalog and you have an all items button. So you can see everything that's available to a user. And then you can also separate it out by kind of like folders. So you can make it so there's a folder of infrastructure items, a folder of Active Directory items, a folder of developer items. And you can separate out the different services for better usability that way. Additionally, the multi-tenancy aspect of VCAC, and specifically the service catalog, allows different organizations or business unit or groups of users to see different services. So maybe you have services that are only consumable or only allowed to be provisioned for a certain set of users. Well, their service catalog is going to look a lot different than a more generic user who may only have a Windows or a Linux VM, whereas your other user, maybe it's an administrative group, has Active Directory actions. So I think you can see where this is going. You really can separate out by job duty or by group or by organization the different views that are presented within the service catalog.